We have an update to a story we brought you Monday about a stray dog that was found trapped in a tar pit near a Fresno business.
The construction worker heard it first, a faint choking sound, wet and desperate, rising from somewhere below. He walked toward the abandoned pit at the edge of the work site in southern Brazil. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the cracked earth. He almost didn't look down. He almost kept walking. But he did look. And what he saw made his heart stop. Inside the pit stood a dog, or what had once been a dog. The animal was completely encased in hardened black tar, frozen in place like a living statue. Only one eye was barely visible through the thick black shell. The nostrils were nearly sealed shut. Every breath the creature took sounded wet, blocked, as if each one might be his last. The dog couldn't move, not a paw, not his tail, not even his head. He simply stood there, trembling inside his prison of tar, waiting for something, perhaps death, perhaps mercy. A small crowd gathered. Someone whispered, "This isn't the first time this pit has trapped something." Another man tried to pull the dog free, but the tar held him like cement. The dog's legs began to shake. His breathing grew weaker. "He's running out of air," someone said. Someone called Protect Animals Worldwide, PAW. The call came to PAW's headquarters in Paraná. Luana Hauser, the executive director, answered. She had handled hundreds of rescues over the years, dogs caught in floods, cats trapped in drains, animals beaten and abandoned. But the voice on the other end of the line said something she had never heard before. "He's not stuck. He's sealed." Luana assembled her team immediately. They loaded their equipment, blankets, medical supplies, solvents, cutting tools, and drove toward the site. The siren wailed. Traffic parted. There was no time for delays. In the van, Luana warned her team about what they would face. Hot tar causes chemical burns. Forcing removal would tear the skin right off the animal's body. And if the tar had blocked his airways too completely, the dog could suffocate before they could help him. When they arrived, the crowd parted silently. Even the rescuers, people who had seen terrible things, went quiet when they saw him. Up close, it was worse than anyone had imagined. The dog's entire body was covered in a black shell. His fur had solidified into a single hardened mass. His eyes, the only things still visible, barely blinked. He looked less like an animal and more like a sculpture left behind by some cruel artist. "He looks like a statue," someone whispered. The rescuers tested the tar. It was hard as stone. They worked carefully, freeing just enough around his chest to help him breathe a little easier. But they faced an impossible choice. If they tried to remove the tar here, his skin would tear. If they waited too long, he would suffocate. There was only one option. They had to transport him still sealed in the tar. They lifted him with blankets, cradling his frozen body as gently as they could. He couldn't bend. He couldn't lie down. He stood rigid the entire ride, trapped in the same position he had been in for hours, perhaps days. Every bump in the road risked cracking the tar and tearing his skin. One rescuer monitored his breathing the entire way. Another knelt beside him, whispering words of comfort, though the dog gave no response. His eyes remained wide, fixed on nothing, as if he had already given up hope. They didn't take him to a shelter. There was no time. They drove straight to a professional groomer and veterinarian who were already preparing for the fight ahead. The veterinary team tested various oils and solvents, searching for anything that could soften the tar without burning the skin beneath. After what felt like hours, they found a small patch they could work with. Slowly, carefully, they softened it and peeled it away. Underneath, they found raw, inflamed skin, red and angry from chemical burns. The dog flinched. It was the first time he had moved on his own. He could feel pain again. He was alive. They named him right there in that moment of hope. Luciano. because they said he must survive to hear his name. Tar removal could not be rushed. It had to be done inch by inch, layer by layer, with constant breaks to let Luciano rest. The team worked in shifts, never leaving him alone. Luciano shook nonstop. His eyes followed every hand that came near him. He didn't fight them, but he didn't trust them either. He simply endured. By hour 12, they had only removed about 30% of the tar. His skin underneath was burning. His body temperature had begun to drop, and there was still so far to go. As darkness fell, Luciano's condition took a terrifying turn. He became lethargic. His breathing slowed. His body temperature plummeted. The veterinarians realized what was happening. The tar had been insulating him, trapping his body heat. By removing it too quickly, they had triggered hypothermia. Luciano was going into shock. "Stop," one of the vets ordered. "Stop everything." They wrapped him in heating pads. They started IV fluids. They gave him oxygen. The room fell silent except for the beeping of monitors. "If we keep removing tonight," the vet said quietly, "we may kill him." So they stopped. Luciano lay there, half sealed in tar, half exposed to the cold air, barely breathing. The team could do nothing but wait and pray that morning would come, and that Luciano would still be alive to see it. Dawn broke. Luciano was alive, weak, exhausted, but alive. And for the first time, his eyes tracked Luana as she entered the room. It was the tiniest moment, a flicker of recognition, perhaps the first small spark of trust. The tar removal resumed, even more carefully than before. More fur was lost, more burns were revealed, but there were no major tears, no catastrophic wounds. It was, the veterinarians agreed, nothing short of a miracle. At hour 48, they finally uncovered Luciano's face. His ears, which had been glued flat to his head, lifted weakly for the first time. His nose, that beautiful, sensitive nose that dogs use to understand the world, was free again. Luciano took a deep breath, his first clean, unobstructed breath in days. There were tears in the room. Grown men and women, veterinarians who had seen so much suffering, wiped their eyes. "Welcome back," the vet whispered. At hour 72, they removed the final chunks of tar from Luciano's back legs. For the first time in what may have been a week, Luciano attempted to take a step. His legs buckled. He collapsed. Then, slowly, he stood again. He took one step, then two. No one cheered. Everyone simply watched, holding their breath, as the dog who had been a statue took his first steps back into life. Luciano was finally free, at least his body was. But his heart and his spirit would take much longer to heal. In the days after the tar was removed, Luciano's body began to recover. But his behavior told a different story. He flinched at every movement near him. He refused to make eye contact. When he rested, he curled himself into the smallest shape possible, as if trying to disappear. He ate without lifting his head, ready to flee at any moment. He slept sitting up, unable to relax enough to lie down. He didn't play. He didn't wag his tail. He didn't bark. His body healed faster than his memory, the veterinarian observed sadly. Whatever Luciano had experienced before falling into that pit, and during those terrible hours trapped in the tar, had left scars that no medicine could reach. The staff at PW understood that Luciano's healing would take time. They gave him what he needed most: patience. There were no cages, no loud noises, no sudden movements, just quiet rooms, gentle hands, and the steady rhythm of kindness. Week after week, they watched for signs of progress, and slowly, beautifully, those signs began to appear. In week 6, Luciano wagged his tail for the first time, just a small, hesitant wag, but unmistakable. In week 9, he barked. The sound startled everyone, including Luciano himself, but he had found his voice again. By month 3, he began to run. Short, excited bursts at first, quick dashes across the yard before stopping, as if remembering that he wasn't supposed to feel joy. But then he would run again. After 4 months, the staff began to see something new emerging, a personality. Luciano was playful. He was curious. He was, underneath all that trauma, a dog who wanted to love and be loved. Word of Luciano's story had spread. A family who had seen the footage of his rescue contacted PAW with a simple question. Is he ready to be loved? They came to meet him. They sat with him. They let him come to them on his own terms. And when Luciano tentatively placed his head in the woman's lap, everyone knew this was the family that was meant to be his. On adoption day, Luciano hesitated at the door. He turned and looked back at Luana, the woman who had been there from the beginning, who had refused to give up on him even in his darkest hours. She knelt down and met his eyes. "It's okay," she said softly. "Go." And Luciano stepped forward into his new life. In his new home, everything was strange and wonderful. The grass felt unfamiliar under his paws. The wind surprised him. Birds sang songs he had never stopped to hear. For a moment, Luciano stood still in the backyard, taking it all in. His new family watched, wondering what he would do. Then something inside him broke free. Luciano exploded into motion. He ran, he spun, he leaped into the air. He crashed into the family, tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. The children laughed, the parents cried. The dog, who once couldn't move at all, now could not stop moving. This is what dog lovers call the zoomies, that pure, uncontrollable burst of joy that dogs express with their whole bodies. And Luciano, who had spent so long trapped in stillness, had finally found his zoomies again. Before, there was a sealed breathing shell at the bottom of a forgotten construction pit, a dog waiting to die in the darkness. After, there is a warm bed, a family who adores him, and a name spoken with love every single day. Luana, reflecting on Luciano's journey, said it best. He was never meant to be a statue. He was meant to be a dog. Today, if you could see Luciano, you would find him sleeping in a patch of sunlight, his chest rising and falling with easy, peaceful breaths. His ears twitch as he dreams, perhaps of running, perhaps of playing, perhaps of nothing at all except the simple joy of being alive. He is fully free, he is fully loved, and that is enough.